Podcasting, the latest frontier. These are the episodes of a Catch as Catch Can podcast. Its continuing mission: to explore strange, nerdy topics, to chat about sports, movies, sci-fi, and so much more. To boldly pod where this nerd has gone before. Captain's log. Pod date 02/03.19. Now, on this episode of Too Boldly Pod, we're going to ever so quickly take a little preview of Super Bowl 53, which airs tonight, this evening, after you listen to this podcast, or after the fact if you download the podcast later. So, we'll talk about that. I asked for your predictions, and you came through. So we'll talk about what you all think is going to happen in the game with a little Facebook poll. And we'll also discuss a post-a-question. Reboots are big now in Hollywood. What show would you like to be or see get rebooted by Hollywood? And I also had a little conversation with my buddy Rob about a brand new show that him and I are enjoying called Project Blue Book. So, is that phasers on stun? Scotty, engage. Well, as you all know, today is, well, if you're listening to this on Sunday, February 3rd, 2019, today is Super Bowl Sunday. So later on today, we will have Super Bowl 53, or LIII if you prefer. Now, we're not going to go into it too much because people are probably getting tired of Super Bowl chatter. But just for the sake of this podcast, I'll just say I think people are getting worn out with the Patriots being in there. And you can agree with me or disagree with me with you on, yes, they got caught with Spygate and the stupid Deflategate thing, which is really nothing other. Honestly, I think if Tom Brady wouldn't have tried to save face and cover everything up, it wouldn't even have been a big deal, because even people that still call him a cheater have to admit when they found out the less than deflated balls and put the regular balls in, he actually ramped it up and kicked ass more than when he had balls that were deflated. I digress. So it's just stupid. I mean, it's hard to argue that he is, if not the one of the one or two best quarterbacks to ever play the game. Now, that being said, I did put out a Facebook poll asking people who they thought was going to win the game. And as I said last week, I've been picking against the Patriots the entire playoffs, thinking this has to end sometime, and they keep proving me wrong. So my selection, even though I would like to see the Rams win, is I think the Patriots will win by a 38-32 score. And really in most of, if not all of the Patriots Super Bowl games, there haven't really been any blowouts, and there's been drama. So if that holds to form, we should have a very entertaining Super Bowl. Now, as I stated, I asked people on Facebook with one of those fancy little Facebook polls, simply, who do you think is going to win Super Bowl 53, or Super Bowl LIII if you prefer? I asked, who do you think is going to win, the Rams or the Patriots? And including mine, we got 20 votes, so thank you all for participating. And oddly enough, with a few minor exceptions, it's almost right down gender lines for the voting. And including mine, 10 people selected the New England Patriots and only one female did. And 10 people selected the Rams with only, well, slightly more fellows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 guys selected the Rams and 5 girls, women, chose the Rams. So it goes right down the line, 50-50. So that proves to me that my friends, my compadres, we're all split 50-50. Now, I'd like to see the Rams win, but I think the Patriots will win. So hopefully it's foreshadowing that it's going to be a very entertaining game. And if you come back on the next podcast and give me your prediction, you'll look really smart because you'll know who won the game and whatnot. So hope you enjoy Super Bowl 53, and we'll get back to discussing more nerdy topics of the sci-fi aspect next with Project Blue Book. The en vogue thing in Hollywood, it seems like now, is to reboot old television and movies. And some of the shows that I grew up loving are getting rebooted too. Now, I loved a show in the 70s called Project UFO that was all about UFOs. But the History Channel has recently started a program called Project Blue Book, which is essentially the same thing that Project UFO was in the 70s, but with a little more modern twist. And my buddy Rob and I have been texting back and forth about it since it came on. So I decided to call him up. And before we move on with this segment, we'll share our conversation about Project Blue Book. So I'm joined now by my buddy Rob, and we're going to discuss the new History Channel show called Project Blue Book. Now, as we know, it's not necessarily a reboot, but it kind of is of the 70s show called Project UFO. They are both based on the same thing. And I just want to talk to Rob and get his thoughts about the show because he's actually the one that told me that it was on. So, Rob, let me know what you think about Project Blue Book so far.
So far, well, I watched the first one, and I think when the second one started or went, I asked you if you watched it, and you said you hadn't watched it yet. So, the first episode, I wasn't totally impressed, and I had it, set to record, but I had like 3 or 4 other shows at the same time, so I opted not to record it and watch it on demand. So I started watching on that, and then the third episode, it wasn't on demand, so I had to put it back on recording. So after the first episode, I thought the second one was really good, and then the third one, I think that was the Lubbard, Texas one. I really like that one, and then the last one, I'm really starting to get hooked. So I think the production of it's really good. I think the acting's really good, and I like the chemistry between Dr. Alan Hynek and Captain Michael Quinn. I like the tension between those two. So, as we discussed before, I think the scientist Hynek in real life was more skeptical than he is in the series. But overall, I think the production's really good. The CGI is good. The acting is good. Directing is good. So I'm getting kind of hooked on it.
Now, you watched the paperclip one.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I watched that last night, and I kind of lost a little bit because, like I told you, they're moving more into the X-Files intrigue type of thing.
Yeah. And that's, like we discussed before, it's not so much the evidence, which you and I are kind of like, that's what it's all about. But I kind of, that's kind of the X-Files and now his wife and stuff. So it's kind of getting complex, but it's still pretty good. I wish they'd focus a little bit more on the evidence because that's what, like I said, you and I are probably most interested in. So
Now, do you remember or did you watch Project UFO when it was on in the 70s?
Yeah, but it's been so long. I'd probably have to like watch a couple episodes. I remember I watched it. I don't remember much of. I think it was mostly, wasn't it just kind of like a documentary?
More or less.
Yeah, of the evidence. So
that's kind of what I thought this one was going to be, and I'm happy with it. I won't say I don't like it. I just, when it comes to UFO stuff, I want factual or based on factual stuff.
Yeah, because I think the old Project Blue Book, wasn't that more like In Search Of, kind of like more of a talking about
Project UFO?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, but in a dramatic setting.
Okay. Like I said, it's been a long time, so.
They are, one thing I've noticed that's kind of directly correlating to that show, because of the 4 episodes so far, I distinctly remember 3 of the 4 of them being Project UFO episodes.
Yeah.
So you're the film guy.
Yeah.
And do you like their attention to detail with the being set in the 50s?
Yeah, I think they've done a really excellent job with all the stuff they've had. So yeah, I've been really pleased with the production. You know, they spent a lot of money to do this. It isn't, half-assed like some shows. But yeah, I really like the actor. I don't know what his name is that plays the doctor. I think he's really good. And the captain guy from the Navy is growing on me. I like the tension between those two. But I think that last episode, they're kind of getting on the same page, which I don't think was really what I've watched shows and read about. They were on the same page, but they were kind of debunking. And it seems like Alan Hynek is trying to prove that it's real, and the captain's at odds with it. So I don't think that's really accurate unless you've read or watched something different. So.
Right. So. Okay, well, I'm going to put you on the spot here, because you already answered it, sort of, on Facebook, but the reason I'm talking about this was there's this big blow-up of reboots with movies and TV shows now, and go ahead and tell everybody what your answer when I ask that question of what show would you like to see rebooted.
Yeah,
what one did you answer?
Yeah, I'd like to see the original Battlestar Galactica. I know they came out with a second series reboot, but I like to see it with the old Cylons and the old ships and, really the Cylons. So, and I did say, I can't remember what the dog's name is. I don't want to see him Daggett. That to me about Battlestar Galactica, that was kind of like it was a little too kidsy. I wanted something a little more like Star Wars, teenage.
Right.
In the 20s. So that's the only problem gripe I had with Battlestar Galactica. All the ships and stuff were awesome. And I really like that stuff. So the rest of the show was kind of so.
Okay, so before I let you go, let me tack on to that. You didn't like the Daggett in Battlestar Galactica. Did you like Tweaky in Buck Rogers?
I liked him probably better, but that was kind of goofy too. But
it was the same premise.
Yeah, I thought the one from Buck Rogers was a little bit cooler.
Fair enough. Okay, well, I'll stop now. So, anything you want to send out to the audience? Maybe an investigation you have in the works?
Oh, well, we got that. We got one in the works. Hopefully, when the weather breaks, spring, we've got a ghost investigation over towards your area, so which I'm working on right now, which hopefully you'll be able to accompany me, probably just you and I. So I'm looking forward to that with the new equipment I bought. So hopefully we can get that, and we'll have a podcast and later we can talk about what we found out. So
thank you to Rob for joining me in that little conversation. I'm sure we'll revisit that as Project UFO continues, and then once he gets closer to doing his investigation, we'll have him back on here for all of you paranormal buffs out there, and we'll talk about what's going to happen at the investigation, yada, yada, yada. Now, on social media, I asked the question, what TV show you loved in the past would you like to see rebooted? And I got quite a bit of responses from some people about it. Now, Kate said, if I thought it could be done right, Emergency would be my choice. But I don't think it could be done right in this modern age. It would end up with unnecessary pumped-up music, drama, and violence. So that said, I think it would be really cool if they could reboot Babylon 5. Mike said he'd like to see Coach rebooted. Kayla said, and happy birthday, Kayla, none. Reboots always ruin it. While I was sad to see many of my shows end, they needed to stay that way. Paul, noted author and musician Paul Canellis, said, welcome back, Cotter. I would reboot it as a 70s period piece, though, and then he went on to say he would love if he could write it. Kate also came back with, what about Project UFO? That could be a super cool show now, and get her little boyfriend Giorgio and Eric Von Daniken to consult, plus special FX advances, yada, yada, yada. And then I pointed out to her, pay attention to this podcast because we may just discuss that. Rob, as you heard, said Battlestar Galactica. Chris Ringler, another noted author and damn fine guy, said a good Kolchak or Briscoe County Jr. reboot would be awesome. Kimber said Other Space. My sister Deb said, so many. And yeah, I'm sure there are a lot. My fantastic producer Kelly suggested Green Acres could be fun. My friend Dave said Charles in Charge, and then he went on to say, and by the way, Bayo could still play a teenager. My friend Jim said Cop Rock, and then he said, I'm kidding, I'm a kidder. That would be interesting to see Cop Rock these days, though. Mark suggested Hogan's Heroes. Kurt claimed he doesn't care too much for reboots. And then Doug said The Gong Show. And didn't The Gong Show get rebooted? I don't know. Am I thinking that right or wrong? Didn't they try that last year and it got canceled right away? But maybe that's why I don't remember. So, is there a show that you grew up to that you would like to see rebooted into the 21st century? There's lots of shows that I like. I mean, you all know I love Trek so much, but I'm still can't completely buy in to Discovery. But I will say, and eventually we're going to discuss this on this podcast, I have had ups and downs with the Orville, but I'm really growing to like that program. Well, that's going to wrap up another Too Boldly Pod. I hope you enjoyed our chat and poll about Super Bowl 53, or LIII, and I hope you enjoyed our little conversation about Hollywood reboots and my conversation with my buddy Rob about the show Project Blue Book. Next time on this podcast, I will be coming off going to see one of my idols, one William Shatner. So there will be lots of giddy conversation about that. So, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. I will talk to all of you next time right here on Too Boldly Pod.